In the golden plains of Serengeti National Park, Tanzania, a rare and captivating bond roams the wild, a male and female lion who defy the traditional rules of pride dynamics. Unlike most lions that live in structured groups, Tao, a strong lion with a thick mane and piercing amber eyes, and Safiya, a graceful yet resilient lioness with a lean build, have chosen to live as a pair. Neither belongs to any pride, yet their connection is unshakable. From their adolescent years, they have been inseparable, hunting together, sleeping side by side, and sharing each meal with an unspoken understanding. Wildlife researchers working in the reserve have come to recognize their silhouettes at a distance, always together, never apart. At dawn, the pair can be seen walking through the misty grasses, and as the sun sets, they nuzzle and play on golden slopes. Locals affectionately call them the Wanderers. What makes Tao and Safiya special is not just their independence, but the way they mirror a kind of loyalty that is rarely seen even among bonded prides. Their unique partnership has become both a mystery and a symbol of quiet devotion in one of Africa's most untamed landscapes. After several weeks of quiet observation, conservationists at Serengeti National Park began to notice subtle but telling changes in Safiya's behavior. Her movements had slowed, and her belly had grown noticeably rounder. It became clear she was pregnant. The news thrilled the park staff, who had grown fond of the bonded pair. A new generation was on the horizon, a rare gift from lions who had always walked their own path. In the days that followed, Tao and Safiya became more withdrawn. They wandered less, staying near a secluded cluster of dense grasses. Safiya spent most of her time hidden in the tall brush, resting and conserving her strength. Tao, once relaxed and regal in his movements, now paced constantly, his eyes alert, ears flicking at every sound. He stood watch like a silent guardian, circling the area and keeping threats at bay. Their bond, once seen as unusual, now revealed its deeper meaning, not just companionship but commitment. Tao's constant vigilance and Safiya's quiet patience painted a portrait of protection and trust. Something sacred was approaching, and both lions seemed to know. The wild held its breath, waiting. The sun barely crept over the horizon when the stillness of the Serengeti was shattered by Safiya's roars. At first they were fierce, echoing across the golden plains, but slowly they weakened, turning into strained cries of pain. She was in labor, but something was wrong. Hours passed and the expected birth didn't come. Instead, Safiya collapsed in the tall grass, her flanks rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. Her once bright eyes were now dim with exhaustion. Tao, usually composed and proud, was completely undone. He paced frantically in wide, trembling circles around her, his roars laced with panic and helplessness. He nudged her gently with his massive head, then snarled into the sky as if pleading with the wind for help. He didn't know what to do, and that made his desperation even more heartbreaking. Nearby, a group of rangers on a morning patrol heard the strange, broken calls of the male lion. It was not the roar of dominance, but of despair. Peering through binoculars, they spotted Safiya lying motionless, with Tao circling like a grieving sentinel. The sight crushed their hearts. For a lioness known for her strength and grace, this fragile moment struck a powerful chord. Nature had turned cruel, and unless something was done quickly, Safiya, and her unborn cubs, wouldn't survive. One ranger whispered, "We have to try. She's not just any lioness. She's Safiya." They revved the engine, turning off the usual path, and headed straight into the wild, toward the cry for help. As the patrol truck rumbled to a halt at the edge of the grassland clearing, 3 men stepped out, each with a defined role etched by experience. Kagiso, a seasoned wildlife specialist, scanned the horizon, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Tao. The male lion stood tall, muscles tense, but there was something different in his stance, not aggression but desperation. He wasn't defending territory, he was asking for help. Adabio, the unit's protector, kept one hand on his tranquilizer rifle, every muscle ready to respond if Tao lashed out. Omar, quiet and analytical, watched everything, Tao's breathing, his paw placements, even the twitch of his ears. Kagiso raised a calming hand and began his approach, slow and deliberate. Each step crunched against dry grass, echoing through the unnerving silence. Tao let out a low, guttural moan, not a warning but something softer. He lifted his front legs slightly and then lowered his head, a gesture Kagiso had never seen from a wild lion. "He's begging us," he whispered. Drawing a deep breath, Kagiso crouched beside Safiya, who was barely breathing. Her sides trembled with each shallow breath, and her eyes rolled back as her body fought for life. Blood and sweat clung to her fur. Kagiso gently touched her flank. No movement. "We're losing her," he said, his voice cracking. Omar and Adabio rushed to back the truck closer. Time was vanishing. The next minutes would decide if love and courage were enough to rewrite fate. The pickup truck sped across the dusty paths of the Meja Mara Reserve, its back lined with padded blankets where Safiya lay motionless, her labored breathing barely audible above the rumble of the engine. Tao ran behind them, his powerful frame kicking up clouds of earth as he chased the vehicle, refusing to be separated from his mate. Every few seconds he let out a deep, aching growl, not of anger but of fear. Upon arrival at the conservation center, the gates were flung open and veterinarians rushed out, wheeling in equipment. Kagiso guided them as Safiya was carefully lowered onto the operating table. Her condition was critical. She had lost too much energy, and her uterine muscles were no longer contracting properly. Her heart rate was weak, her gums pale. The lead veterinarian administered medication to stimulate contractions while another prepped for possible surgical intervention. Outside, Tao paced along the steel gate, eyes wild, ears alert to every sound. He refused to rest, as if his spirit were tethered to the one fighting inside. Minutes passed like hours until finally, a tiny cry broke through the tense silence. The first lion cub was born, wriggling weakly under the vet's gloved hands. Cheers erupted softly. Then came the second and moments later a third. 3 lives pulled from the brink. Inside the surgical tent, the exhausted lioness lifted her head weakly toward her newborns. Outside, Tao let out a soft roar, the sound of hope returned. Throughout the long night, Tao remained stationed outside the gates of the conservation center, refusing to leave his position. He didn't roar or pace now, he simply waited, silent and vigilant. Only once did he vanish into the nearby thickets, likely to hunt, but within the hour he returned to the same spot, as if fearing he'd missed the moment his family would need him most. Staff who witnessed the scene were deeply moved. A creature of the wild showing unwavering loyalty that mirrored the most human of emotions. At sunrise, as golden light poured across the reserve, the medical team deemed Safiya strong enough for reunion. Slowly the gates creaked open. The moment Tao saw her, he bounded forward, tail raised high, eyes wide with relief. He rushed to her side, lowering his head and rubbing it gently against hers, the soft rumble in his throat resembling a purr. Safiya responded with a weak but joyful growl, nuzzling him back. Then the real magic happened. The 3 lion cubs stirred, their tiny bodies wobbling toward the comforting scent of their father. The family huddled together under the morning sun, a sacred tableau of survival, love, and reunion. Rangers nearby fell silent, awestruck by the wordless bond that had carried them through the storm. For Tao and Safiya, no roar was needed. This was love in its truest form, ferocious, protective, and unbreakable, proven not through dominance but through quiet devotion. With Safiya regaining her strength and the cubs healthy enough to travel, the moment of departure arrived. Tao stepped forward proudly, his gaze sweeping across the open plains beyond the center. Safiya followed closely behind, her movements slower but steady, while their 3 cubs toddled between them, a complete family walking together under the vast African sky. As they passed through the main gate, the staff gathered quietly, their hearts full. Then just before Tao reached the tall grasses of the wild, he paused. He turned his massive head and looked back at the center, his amber eyes locking onto those who had helped save the ones he loved. No roar. No growl. Just a silent gaze, a gesture that said more than words ever could. Then, with a flick of his tail, he led his family back into the wilderness where they belonged. The story of Tao and Safiya quickly spread across Masai Mara, a tale of loyalty, trust, and resilience that touched everyone who heard it. Tour guides spoke of it with reverence, and rangers shared the account as a reminder that even the fiercest beasts carry a heart capable of deep love. In nature, survival often overshadows sentiment, yet this lion's quiet act of devotion reminded us that love knows no boundaries, not of species, language, or form. Sometimes, the greatest lessons in loyalty and courage come not from words, but from watching those who protect without ever needing to promise.